The comment didn't come wrapped in cruelty. No raised voice, no sharp edge. It didn't arrive in a fight. It arrived in a dining room. Quiet, familiar, surrounded by people who were supposed to be family. People always assume marriages end in explosions, affairs, screaming matches, slammed doors. Mine ended because I finally noticed how quiet it had been getting for years. I met my husband when I was 29 at a mutual friend's birthday dinner. Nothing cinematic, no sparks flying across the room. He sat next to me, asked what I did, actually listened to the answer. That alone felt rare enough to register. I worked in network administration back then. Still do. 8 years. At the same company. Not glamorous, not trendy, but solid. I liked solving problems no one noticed until everything broke. Servers, systems, infrastructure. The invisible things that keep everything running. He liked that about me, or so I thought. He worked in marketing. Ambitious, polished, knew how to sell a story. He talked about growth, momentum, trajectory. I talked about stability, redundancy, long-term planning. We joked that we balanced each other out. Dating him felt easy at first. He was charming without being loud, affectionate in public, attentive in ways that made me feel chosen. When he proposed 3 years later, it was simple and thoughtful. He got down on one knee in our living room, nervous hands, earnest eyes. "I want to build a life with you," he said. I believed him. The first cracks didn't look like cracks. They looked like comments wrapped in humor. His sister asking if I was still doing the same IT thing. His mother joking about how nice it must be to have a calm, predictable wife. Little laughs that landed just soft enough to ignore. At first, I did ignore them. I told myself families have dynamics. That sarcasm was just her personality, that I didn't need defending because I was confident enough not to care. Except confidence doesn't make disrespect disappear. It just teaches you how to carry it quietly. My husband never joined in directly, at least not at first. He'd stay neutral, change the subject, smile, and let it pass. I told myself that was him being non-confrontational, not complicit. And my brother-in-law, her husband, was the kind of man who rarely took up space in a room. He'd laugh at the right places, nod at the right moments, keep his voice mild. Sometimes, when his wife's jokes ran a little too sharp, I'd catch him doing small, almost invisible things, clearing his throat like he wanted to interrupt, shifting in his chair, looking down at his plate like the conversation had suddenly gotten too loud for him. But he never actually stepped in. He just went quiet, the way you do when you've learned what happens if you challenge the person who controls the mood. Then, slowly, the language shifted. My husband started calling me the steady one in front of people, the reliable one, the support system, always framed like a compliment, always positioned next to his career wins. I noticed he never corrected anyone when they implied he'd married up, or down, depending on how you listened. The night we fought about ambition sticks with me now. It was about a month before that dinner. He'd come home irritated, complaining about coworkers' spouses, how driven they were, how impressive, how visible. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. When he finally apologized, he blamed stress, pressure, long hours. I accepted it because I wanted peace more than answers. What I didn't realize then was that something fundamental had already shifted. Respect doesn't disappear overnight. It erodes, joke by joke, silence by silence, until one day you hear yourself being described as someone who was settled for. And instead of arguing, you finally listen. Looking back, the warning signs weren't subtle. They were just familiar. They lived in tone, in pauses, in the way certain sentences were never corrected. Every family dinner followed the same rhythm. Compliments that weren't really compliments. Questions that weren't really curiosity. His sister always led them, sharp-eyed, confident, the kind of woman who spoke like the room owed her attention. "So what's new at work for you?" she'd ask, emphasis landing just slightly off. I'd answer anyway. Expansion plans, new systems, more responsibility. The kind of growth that doesn't come with applause but matters when everything else breaks. She'd smile, that almost smile. Must be nice to be comfortable. Comfortable became the word. A polite synonym for stagnant, for unambitious, for less than. My husband never contradicted her. Sometimes he'd squeeze my hand under the table, like that was supposed to count as support. Other times he'd say things like, "She's not really into climbing ladders," as if that were a shared joke. I wasn't asked how I felt about being framed that way. I was assigned a role and expected to play it graciously. At home, I started noticing how often he compared our paths, not directly, casually. Mentions of colleagues' spouses who were killing it, who never settled, who matched the energy. One night, after too many glasses of wine and not enough honesty, he finally said it out loud. "You're just comfortable with mediocrity." The word hit harder than I expected, not because it was cruel, but because it echoed everything his family had been implying for years. We argued for hours, voices raised, then lowered. He walked it back eventually, said he didn't mean it like that, said he was stressed, said he admired my stability. Stability, again. That was the night I realized I was being valued for how little I demanded, not for who I was. A few days later, I called my lawyer, not to file anything, just to talk, to understand what options even existed if I ever stopped tolerating this version of my life. He told me to take time, to think, to be sure. I did. Every sideways comment after that landed differently. Every laugh my husband shared with his sister felt heavier. Every silence felt louder. By the time we sat down for that Sunday dinner, the promotions, the familiar table, I wasn't walking into an ambush. I was walking into confirmation. I just didn't know yet that it would be the last time I'd sit there as his wife. Sunday dinners at my in-laws' house had always been predictable. Same long wooden table, same seating. Same polite chaos of plates being passed and conversations overlapping just enough to feel alive. That night, everything looked exactly the same, which is why it took a moment to realize something was different. My brother-in-law had just been promoted. Finance job, big raise, corner office, the kind of success that filled the room with congratulations and pride. Everyone leaned in toward him, nodding, smiling, asking questions. I was genuinely happy for him. I said so, meant it. And when he thanked everyone, he glanced at me, quickly, almost like an afterthought, and his smile wavered. Not because of me, because he already knew where the attention would go next. He'd seen the pattern as many times as I had. He just lived inside it. Then his wife, my husband's sister, turned her attention to me. "So," she said, tilting her head, "what about you? Still at the same place?" Her tone wasn't curious, it was evaluative. "Yes," I said evenly. "Same company. They're actually expanding my team, so I'll probably be managing a few people soon." It was good news. Solid news. The kind of thing I'd worked years for. She smiled. "That's nice," she said. "Must be comfortable staying put for so long." Comfortable again. Before I could respond, she kept going. "With my brother's career really taking off, it's good he has someone stable at home, someone reliable." I glanced at my husband. He was cutting his meat, eyes down, mouth relaxed. No reaction. Across the table, my brother-in-law shifted in his seat, like he wanted to disappear behind his water glass. His gaze flicked toward his wife, then away. He didn't look at me. He looked tired. I tried to keep it light. Someone has to hold down the fort. She laughed, delighted. "Exactly. Honestly, he's so lucky he settled for someone like you." The words landed cleanly. No hesitation, no apology. The table went still. Then my husband laughed. Not a reflex, not a mistake. A laugh of agreement. "She's right," he said, smiling at her. "Someone has to be the steady one." Something inside me clicked into place, not with heat, but with calm. I wasn't embarrassed. I wasn't angry. I was done misunderstanding. I smiled, slowly. "You know what?" I said. "You're absolutely right." Her face lit up. She thought she'd won something. I placed my napkin beside my plate. "Excuse me," I added. "I need to make a quick call." No one stopped me. No one asked if I was okay. Outside, I sat in my car, hands resting on the steering wheel, breathing evenly. 6 years of marriage replayed, not in memories, but in patterns. Comments, silences, laughter that wasn't meant for me. I didn't cry. I called my lawyer. "Yes," I said when he answered. "Remember those papers we talked about last month? I need them finalized. Today." 90 minutes later, I walked back into that dining room. Dessert had been served, conversations resumed. I sat down, reached into my bag, and slid the folder across the table toward my husband. "Quick question," I said softly. "Do you still think you settled?" When he opened the folder and went pale, I finally knew. This wasn't impulsive. This was overdue. The room didn't erupt right away. It froze. My husband stared at the papers like they were written in a language he didn't recognize. His sister stopped mid-sentence, dessert fork hovering uselessly above her plate. My mother-in-law's mouth hung open, soundless. My father-in-law didn't move at all, just sat there, eyes locked on the folder, as if it might disappear if he stared hard enough. My brother-in-law's face drained too. He looked from the papers to me, then down at his lap. His hands clenched once, like he was bracing for impact. Not because he was shocked I did it, because he knew what it meant to challenge the person sitting beside him, and he knew he'd never been brave enough to do it himself. "What is this?" my husband finally asked. His voice was flat, not angry, not panicked yet, disoriented. "Divorce papers," I said. "Already filed. You'll be served officially this week. I just thought you should know." Silence again, thicker this time. "You're joking," he said, a weak laugh sneaking out like a reflex. "This isn't funny." "I'm not joking," I replied. My hands were steady. I noticed that. I hadn't expected them to be. "Over a comment?" his sister burst out. "Are you serious right now?" I looked at her, really looked at her, the way she leaned forward, already preparing to minimize, to rewrite. "Over 6 years of comments," I said. "Tonight was just the last one." My husband shook his head. "This is insane. You can't just—" "I already did." My mother-in-law found her voice then. "Sweetheart, this is a misunderstanding. You know she jokes. She didn't mean it like that." "How did she mean it?" I asked calmly. No one answered. My husband finally looked at me, not at the papers, not at the table, at me. His eyes were wide now, searching. "Can we not do this here?" he said quietly. "Please." "You laughed," I said. "She said you settled for me, and you laughed." "I was uncomfortable," he insisted. "I didn't know what to say." "You could have said anything," I replied. "You could have said, 'Don't talk about my wife like that.' You could have said, 'That's not true.' You could have said my name." His sister scoffed. "Oh my God, you're being ridiculous. It was a joke." I met her eyes. Was it a joke when he agreed? That shut her up. My husband reached for my arm. His grip was tight now. "This is crazy. We can fix this. Counseling. Time. A break." "I don't want to fix it," I said, gently pulling my arm away. "I want out." His face changed then. Panic replaced disbelief. "What about the house?" he asked. "Our life? Everything we built?" "The house gets sold," I said. "We split it. The lawyers handle the rest." "Just like that?" His voice cracked. 6 years means nothing to you?" 6 years of being disrespected means I'm done." I stood, smoothed my jacket. The smallest movement suddenly felt ceremonial. "Thank you for dinner," I said. It was eye-opening. Behind me, chaos finally broke loose. Voices overlapping, my mother-in-law crying, my husband shouting my name, his sister scrambling to explain. I didn't turn around. I got in my car and drove to a hotel, checked into a room that smelled like unfamiliar soap and fresh linen, and sat on the edge of the bed in complete silence. For the first time in years, no one was explaining who I was supposed to be. The next morning, my phone exploded. Calls, texts, voicemails stacking on top of each other, until the notification banner stopped showing numbers and just said more. I didn't answer a single one. I sent one text, short, clean, deliberate. "Please contact me through my lawyer." That was it. By that evening, my husband showed up at the house. He must have assumed I'd gone back there after the dinner. He didn't know I'd stopped by earlier that morning while he was at work, moved quickly, efficiently. Clothes, documents, my laptop. Personal items I didn't want anyone touching. 6 years of marriage reduced to 2 suitcases and a box. When the police knocked on my hotel room door that night, I wasn't surprised. My husband had called them, reported a break-in. I handed over my ID, showed them the deed, both our names, explained calmly that I was separating and retrieving my belongings. They apologized for the inconvenience, not the interruption, and left. That was when his family went from concerned to aggressive. My mother-in-law left a long voicemail, voice trembling with accusation. How could I do this? How could I destroy the family over a misunderstanding? Her son loved me. We could fix this. I was throwing away years of commitment. My father-in-law tried a different tactic. Rational, calm, patronizing. "Marriage takes work," he said. "You're overreacting. You need thicker skin." I didn't call either of them back. My brother-in-law texted next. "Seriously? You're blowing up your marriage because your feelings got hurt? Grow up." I blocked him immediately. The message was sharp in a way he'd never been with me. For a split second, I pictured him at that table, his jaw tight, his eyes down, while his wife dictated the story out loud and expected everyone else to repeat it. Then I reminded myself that whether he meant it or not, he had sent it, and I didn't owe anyone access to me anymore. Then came the email from my husband's sister. Long, polished, carefully worded. She said she was sorry if I'd misinterpreted what she said, that she'd only been joking, that I was clearly too sensitive and projecting my own insecurities onto her words. She suggested, helpfully, that I consider therapy for my obvious self-esteem issues. I forwarded it straight to my lawyer. A few days later, my husband tried something new. He showed up at my office. Security called me because he was refusing to leave the lobby until he spoke to me. I went down, not because I wanted to, but because I didn't want a scene tied to my name. We walked to the coffee shop next door, sat across from each other, the same way we had 100 times before. Except this time, there was no illusion left to protect. "This is insane," he said immediately. "You're really ending our marriage over this?" "I'm ending it because you don't respect me," I replied. "That's not true." "You laughed," I said. "You agreed. You let your family treat me like I should be grateful you chose me." He rubbed his face, frustration leaking through. I was uncomfortable. I didn't know what to say. "You threw me under the bus to keep the peace," I said. "That's not discomfort. That's a choice." He started crying then, quietly, desperately. "I love you," he said. I looked at him and felt nothing move. "You should have thought about that before," I said. "Before every time you stayed silent." "What about the house?" he asked again, voice breaking. "Our life?" "The house gets sold," I said. "We split it. My lawyer handles the rest." He stared at me like I'd just erased something sacred. I stood up, left him sitting there. And for the first time since I'd slid those papers across the table, I felt the weight of what was coming. Not doubt, fallout. The nights were the hardest. Not because I missed him, but because the noise finally stopped. No more comments to deflect. No more jokes to reinterpret. No more pretending I didn't hear what I'd heard. Just silence, heavy and unfamiliar, settling into the hotel room like a second body. I lay awake replaying moments I'd filed away for years. Not arguments, not big betrayals, small things. The way he never corrected his sister. The way he'd laugh first, then squeeze my hand after, like affection could undo agreement. The way I'd tell myself it wasn't worth making a scene. I wondered when I'd learned that peace meant shrinking. A week after the dinner, his lawyer contacted mine. Their position was simple. Everything had been fine until I snapped at a family dinner. I was being impulsive, emotional. I'd regret it. They proposed a 6-month separation instead of a divorce. Time for me to cool off and think clearly. My lawyer's response was equally simple. No. That's when the tone changed. They requested spousal support. We'd been married over 5 years, they argued, and my husband had been planning to cut back at work to start having children. That was news to me. We'd talked about kids vaguely. Someday. No plans, no timelines, no sacrifices discussed. My lawyer asked for proof. There was none, because it had never existed. Meanwhile, the messages kept coming. Friends, cousins, people I barely knew telling me I was stubborn, dramatic, proud. None of them asked what it felt like to sit at a table and hear your worth debated while your partner laughed along. I started doubting myself in quiet moments. Not enough to go back, but enough to hurt. Was I really ending a marriage over words? Then I'd remember his sister's smile, his laugh, the ease with which I'd been placed beneath him. And the doubt would harden into resolve. When the house went on the market, that was the night it finally broke me. Walking through rooms filled with echoes, spaces where I'd learned to make myself smaller. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen and felt it, the grief I hadn't let myself feel yet. Not for the marriage I was losing, but for the version of me that had stayed so long. I cried then, not loudly, just enough to breathe again. Because walking away isn't painless. It's just necessary. The house sold faster than I expected. Good neighborhood, clean inspection, solid price. My husband wanted to buy me out. Said his parents would loan him the money so he could keep it. The house meant stability to him, continuity, proof that something hadn't really ended. I said no. That house carried too many memories of being diminished, of sitting at that table, of smiling through comments, of learning how to disappear without leaving. We sold it, split the equity almost exactly down the middle. Clean, final. A few weeks later, just before everything was officially finalized, he asked to meet for coffee, said he needed closure. I agreed. Not because I owed him anything, but because I needed to hear myself say no without shaking. He looked different, thinner, tired, like someone who'd finally run out of explanations. "I've been thinking," he said after a long pause. "You were right, about my sister, about my family. She's always been critical. I just got used to it." I waited. "I should have defended you," he continued. "I should have shut it down. I'm sorry." He looked at me like that was supposed to unlock something. "That's it?" I asked quietly. "What do you want me to say?" he asked. "That you forgive me? That we try again?" I shook my head. "I don't forgive you. Maybe someday. And no, we're not trying again." "Why not?" His voice cracked. "I'm apologizing. I'm admitting I was wrong. You're apologizing now, I said. After I filed, after I moved out, after you realized I meant it. That's not fair. You know what's not fair? I said. Being married to someone who lets their family treat you like a consolation prize. I do respect you, he insisted. No, I replied. Respect is active. It's defending your partner. You never did that. Not once. I'll do better, he said desperately. Too late. He reached for my hand. I didn't let him touch me. I love you, he said. I looked at him and felt something settle instead of break. I don't think you do, I said. I think you love being married, having stability, having someone reliable, but loving me, actually respecting me, you never learned how. I stood, left him there with his coffee cooling between his hands. That was the moment I took my power back, not with anger, not with revenge, but with clarity. The divorce finalized quietly. No dramatic courtroom showdown, no raised voices, just signatures, dates, and a judge who treated our 6 years like a ledger that needed balancing. No kids, clean split. I got slightly less in the final division. The judge sided with him on a few furniture items he claimed sentimental value for. I didn't argue. By then, objects had lost their meaning. I'd already taken what mattered. I moved into a small apartment across town. 2 bedrooms, neutral walls, quiet nights, mine. Through mutual friends, information trickled in the way it always does. Uninvited, unavoidable. He moved back in with his parents for a while. Couldn't afford rent on his own right away. His sister was having marriage problems. Apparently, her husband was tired of being spoken to like an employee instead of a partner. That surprised no one who'd ever sat at that dinner table. My former mother-in-law tried to add me on social media a few months later. I ignored it. He texted me on what would have been our 7th anniversary. Thinking about you today. Hope you're well. I didn't respond. Months passed. The noise faded. I heard he started dating again. Good for him. I hoped he'd learn something, but learning requires listening, and that had never been his strength. Then something unexpected happened. My former brother-in-law reached out, asked if we could grab a drink, said he owed me an apology. Curiosity won. We sat at a bar neither of us cared about. He didn't waste time. She told everyone you blindsided her, he said, that everything was fine until you just snapped. I nodded. I'd assumed as much. I believed her, he admitted. She's family. Then his wife left him. Same patterns, same language, same dismissal. Years of being told he was too sensitive, too insecure, too much. I started connecting dots, he said quietly. I get it now. Why you left. I didn't feel vindicated, just tired. I'm sorry, he said, for that text, for not seeing it. It's done, I replied. I'm good. And I was. Not triumphant, not bitter. Just finished. It's been almost a year now. Long enough for the dust to settle. Long enough for the story other people told about my marriage to stop reaching me. Long enough for my life to feel like mine again. I bought a small house a few months ago. 2 bedrooms, a modest yard, quiet street. Nothing impressive, just solid. The kind of place that doesn't need defending. I adopted a dog. I'd always wanted one. He listens better than my ex ever did. Work got better too. That management role finally came through. Then another promotion after that. I run 3 teams now. Better pay, better benefits, more responsibility. And this time, no one frames it as something that needs compensating for. My parents say I seem lighter, like myself again. I think that's because I stopped performing, stopped trying to be the right version of a woman for someone else's comfort. I ran into my ex once by accident. Coffee shop. He was with his fiancée. We nodded. An awkward half smile, nothing more. She didn't know who I was. He looked fine, maybe happy. Hard to tell. I felt nothing. That was closure. People still ask if I regret how I handled things, if I should have tried counseling first, given him more time, more chances. No. I gave him 6 years of chances. Every time his sister spoke down to me and he stayed quiet, every time he laughed instead of defending me, every time I felt small and he didn't notice or didn't care, those were chances. The dinner wasn't the end. It was the moment I stopped waiting. I didn't end my marriage over a comment. I ended it over a pattern. Over being treated like I should be grateful someone chose me. Over confusing tolerance with love. You can't be disrespected in your marriage and call it commitment. You can't let people tear down your partner and call it family. You can't make someone feel less than and expect them to stay. My marriage ended at a Sunday dinner table, but it had been over long before that. Sliding those papers across the table wasn't cruelty. Walking out wasn't impulsive. It was self-respect. Finally choosing myself. And that was the best decision I ever made.